subjects taught in Waldorf high schools, including the most rarefied concepts of the physical sciences and the life sciences and even mathematics, are enhanced when they draw upon the arts.
As David said, this is a launching, and I feel much more able to be launched just that I have a foundation of things like eurythmy and singing.
You know, for someone who didn't grow up in Waldorf education, a lot of these experiences, particularly the artistic experiences like sculpture, flex new muscles that I really haven't flexed before. It puts me in a position of empathy, greater empathy for my students, because I have been in their shoes and I know what it feels like to struggle with something and keep at it.
There's been a lot of giving me sort of more information, more context, more detail, a bigger and better picture of what the world of Steiner and of Waldorf education is.
There's really two things that have been really helpful for me. The first is just experiencing phenomenological science.
It's definitely what we call phenomenologically based. In other words, we don't come with a concept, which is often done in the science world, of a concept about something and then give examples of it. Instead, we start with certain phenomena, certain concrete events or whatever, and try to understand it based on what we experience. In other words, we start with a riddle, because when you meet things...
Something that weighs 500 grams. When it's in the water, it weighs 130 grams less. But the mass of this is the same. It's still 500 grams.
But we also spend a lot of time just experiencing this way of seeing the world with our teachers. The first year we did botany with Michael Holdridge, and he'd take us all around campus, and we'd really be looking at all the different plant forms and seeing how different trees are expressing themselves in all kinds of ways, and then from there developing some concepts and principles, but first really doing it through our own perceptual activity.
So all the green is this year's growth.
Right.
Over here, the green is this year's growth. And here you have really nicely these little rings.
Yeah.
And these are actually the terminal bud scars.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because the bud has all these little bracts, which one calls leaves, scales, right? All the little scales of the bud. A bud is many, 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 many tiny leaves that protect the inside, which will not die, but the bud parts die, fall off, and leave these rings all the way.
Yeah, the first thing is actually engaging with the phenomena with our teachers and seeing how they do it and letting them model how they work with the students.
Usually I do that so that the cold liquid, I want to keep the hotter liquid hotter longer, and I want the cold liquid to be able to go in and maybe go right down to the bottom of the beaker. So look at the mountains, and you could be like, why are the clouds forming there? Or why are the clouds forming over the dark forest? Or where are the clouds forming and why? They can start to see with their mind, they can see the convection currents happening and know that at the top of that, the cloud is just the top of the convection current.
So important that all Waldorf high school teachers, especially those in science and math, are themselves trained through experiences in the arts as well as in their specialized subjects.
Most successful for the students because they are in this alchemy mindset and they need to enter into it before they can go beyond it, into the chemistry mindset, right? It's about being so focused with your consciousness that you can do something that's almost impossible. We're going to experiment with the 7 sisters. I'll give you some tin. And we're going to transmute it. Your aspiration is to have your consciousness so pure and to meditate on it in such a way, and your skill as an alchemist so precise that you can transmute. If you heat it too much, there's no chance of getting. If you heat it too little, you may end up back at Jupiter if you suddenly back off too much. But in between are these other qualities. Spot on. Like it's astounding if you study these planetary qualities that a student who is very mercurial will end up in Mercury.
Teaching the sciences and mathematics artistically brings these subjects alive as a creative, imaginative process that appeals directly to the ways a teenager learns anything.
And the question is, can you move around? Can you take a little journey here in this world so that the sum of those distances, so if I think about PF1 plus PF2, that remains a constant. But we're going to take a little trip so that we're not going to stay exactly where we are. So if we get a little bit closer to F2, we would have to get a little bit further from F1 so we get a constant sum. So the first thing I asked the teachers was, just can you picture that in your mind? Right away we have an inward imagination. A couple of days later we took a rope and we went outside and a couple of volunteers stood there and we stretched a piece of rope. And then we could very clearly walk around here and see that the rope was always a constant length, but point P could travel to different places. And then the teachers themselves started asking questions. When P comes down here, where will that point be? Can I find it? And then it was just amazing to see how they each took up that problem really differently. Everyone approached it in a different way, and we all came to the same solution. We all came to the same understanding, but through completely different methods. In a math classroom is that there's no opinion. Like, you don't have to argue about anything.
So important that all Waldorf High School teachers, especially those in science and math, are themselves trained through experiences in the arts as well as in their specialized subjects. They are not being trained to become art teachers. They're being trained to teach their specialized subjects with artistry, in their movement, in their speech, in their use of color, and so on.
And I'm sure that I will continue to maintain those relationships and the resources that each of my colleagues have offered me and will continue to offer me.
We're engaging in the arts, and we're doing eurythmy, and we're singing, we're doing all these different activities.
Not just a head understanding of those underpinnings, but a whole body understanding of them.
Good. You think I really care? Please, step back. You know, I think that you know who I am. I'm Mars.
I feel like I've entered into a beautiful community of colleagues and mentors that I can call upon in the future as I continue to improve my work in the classroom as a teacher.
Einstein said, "I am enough of the artist to draw freely upon my imagination. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world."